Fall pasture management may not be at the top of your priority list now because you might think, well, I got time, I don't have to do that quite yet, but guess what? Harvest is coming up as well, so getting this taken care of now could be really important for your farm.
All right, one of the big questions we get from people is, when's the best time to control weeds out in my pasture? Should I spray in the spring or the fall? And I always say the best time is always today. Whenever the weed is growing, we want to go kill it. So I don't care if it's the spring, it's the summer, it's the fall, it does not matter to me. But the one key thing that I'm going to tell you is spray at least a couple weeks before your first killing frost. If you don't spray early enough, what's going to happen is your herbicide won't truly get down all the way through the extensive root system of many of these perennials or sometimes even biennial weeds, and you don't get a complete kill. So what we're after here today is not just to burn the top growth. We're after complete control on every weed out in that pasture. So hopefully you have a lot more productive pasture next year.
And there are some new tools out there too that you could consider using on your farm. One of those being Duracore. We talk a lot about Milestone. That's been a really fun product to work with. Aminopyrrolate is the active ingredient. It's the best product we've ever seen on thistles. It's fantastic, and like Brian said, gets down in the roots and kills them. The problem is most pastures don't just have a few thistle plants, they've got a variety of weeds. Using a product like Duracore has two different active ingredients, one being Milestone for control of things like thistles, but the other is a new component.
Well, the other one is basically a 2,4-D replacement. Let's step back for a second. For years there was Grazon, that was Tordon and 2,4-D. Then Grazon next, Milestone and 2,4-D. With the Duracore, it's Milestone, and I'll just call it the new 2,4-D replacement. Less drift, a little bit better efficacy. So we would encourage you to at least be checking that out on your farm or on your ranch. The thing with two mode of action products, it's fine if you have a variety of weeds, but I'll be honest, I'm not a huge believer in two mode of action products when I have patches of perennials. So here is what I would encourage you to do. Number one, if thistle is your number one problem on the farm, you just go out there with straight Milestone at 7 ounces. Yes, it's going to cost more than Duracore or Grazon Next or almost anything else, but who cares? You're after complete control, not just this year, but forever. Forever. And what I mean by that is what happens commonly is you go out to your pasture, you burn the weed down a little bit, and it keeps coming back. Same weed year after year after year because these thistles are either perennial or biennial. So you've got to get ahead of them. You've got to get complete control. Milestone's the thistle product. Tordon is an excellent product if, let's say, you have leafy spurge or a number of other perennials. If you have brush species, that's where we'd probably have you move over to something like Remedy Ultra, that's triclopyr, or potentially you could go Vassland, that's going to be a little bit lower drift product, similar to Remedy Ultra, like a triclopyr. There's also chaparral, and that's a combination of the active ingredients you'll find in Ally and Milestone. So you've got a number of different products there for perennial weeds, and for longer term control, that's usually what I talk to people about.
Brian, I can't believe it. You haven't even mentioned your favorite pasture product yet.
Well, Distinct is my favorite pasture product, but that, Darren, is for annual weeds, maybe biennial weeds. So the perennials, again, you got to go with something stronger. You got to go with something that's going to cost a little more money, like Milestone or Tordon. That's the way to go there. But the annual weeds, maybe some biennials, I really do love Distinct. It's just Status without the corn safener, and it's 1/3 the price of Status. Now, a lot of people will say 2,4-D or dicamba, that's the way I want to go. But try to find the newer formulations, especially on the 2,4-D. Something like Enlist 1 or Freelex, you don't have all that drift and volatility of the old 2,4-D. I'd just really be thinking about that because very commonly out of pastures, we see drift and volatility that hurts cropland.
Well, weed control is one big issue, and now is a great time to get that under control on your farm. But the other things that I wanted to focus on are the health of the grass and the fertility of the soil. So when we look at grazing well into the fall, as temperatures begin to decline and we start seeing daytime temperatures down into the 60s or even lower, that's a great time to get some Rise Up Smart Grass out on your pasture. Now, this is gibberellic acid that's going to increase stem elongation and lengthen your grazing window. It's been a game changer for a lot of ranches that are starting to run a little bit short on pasture and want to get the cattle out on pasture longer and have some more grass for them to eat.
In terms of fertility, we would just encourage you soil test out in your pasture. That's a really good way to go. And then look at everything, not just nitrogen, but look at sulfur and boron, potassium, phosphorus. There are a lot of nutrients where you could really help your overall pasture production. We say it very often, but so many pastures around the country and really around the world are neglected. If we just properly fertilize, we use Rise Up Smart Grass, we do some rotational grazing. If you do the right things, it's very common to double your grass production. And while you may not look at grassland as a cash crop, I do, because the more grass you have, the more you're going to overall increase your net income.
The other thing is drought tolerance, Brian. As we feed the grass properly, it uses less water. So we can produce more grass with less rainfall with the proper fertility. So managing weeds, very important in drought situations too, because weeds are very inefficient users of light and of nutrients. If we manage the weeds, we get good grass growth well into the fall with something like Rise Up Smart Grass. And then we also manage that pasture, as you mentioned, with rotational grazing and fertility. We can do a great job out in the pasture, and now is the time to get these things done.
Well, coming back to weeds, we'll talk about our Weed of the Week next.